Welcome to another episode of Don't Give Up. This is in response to a request on YouTube for the topic of anxiety. And I'm really excited about this one. So let's breathe actually and allow ourselves to experience what anxiety is not, which is being right here. You're right here. And a touch point for that can be your nose, which is sort of silly and simple, but it's like right here at the tip of your nose. Like you can't even see it. It's so close, and that's where we're going. When waves of anxiety come and we're breathing still, it's super easy to think that the answer is in the details and joining the conversation that the anxiety presents. So, hey everybody, this is a nice time. People out there, how you doing? Also, I'm on TikTok now at Shaylee Edwards, and I'm doing daily energy readings out there if you're interested. So an energy reading is basically like, hey, here are some non-physical perspectives to consider while you're working through life. And that basically means like, what if everything was for you or to help you practice? And what if, I don't know, it's basically like giving a context to what's occurring in a way that helps you interact with it as if it was correct. And when you do that, more of you is available. Okay, but back to anxiety. So we're gonna breathe. And if you're just joining with what I'm presenting on today is for my homies doing the T to B journey, trauma to being. So that means you're unpacking limited beliefs. That means that you've been in it. It means that you're intentional and moving towards something that feels better and better reflects what you value and what you want and your worth. So someone had requested a presentation on anxiety, so that's what we're doing right now. And the trick of anxiety is, in this advanced drawing of a person, is not to chase the chickens. So your mind likely developed patterns in response to, if you're on this T to B journey, developed patterns of problem solving and interacting with the world from an experience that wasn't quite right. And I say right in that you weren't feeling valued or safe or able to express yourself, or it wasn't stable, or it was deceptive, or and so the way that you work with the world developed in that kind of like distorted place. Hey, good morning. Oh, that's what we're talking about today, is anxiousness. All right, so great. I'll talk directly to you. So the first thing we did was breathe to get here. And what I'm talking about right now is what happens in your head. So anxiousness generally it's kind of like this experience of loose chickens. And you think that if you can figure out how to organize the chickens, or you capture the chickens, or the chickens go away, that you'll feel better. And while there is some reality to that, meaning there are certain actions that you may need to look at taking, or that there are certain circumstances that are safer, until you're sort of centered in yourself, your quality of decision will be much less. You won't really be able to see what you're doing. You'll be acting from kind of like the problem, making more chickens. And that's okay. That's okay. I don't want to put any fear around it. Good comment. Thank you. If you're on the playback, it's a bunch of chickens and one of these faces. And that's okay. So it seems like there are layers of anxiousness. So you can get anxious, and then you get anxious about getting anxious, and then you get anxious about anxious about being, and all of that is part of kind of what happens in your head in the experience, where it's like, okay, well, it's bad for me to be anxious because of the law of attraction, and I don't need to be, and I know better, and all of that just perpetuates. It's just more chickens racing, and so the dirt kicks up more. You see even less. Yes, it's compounding. And so the trick really is to go first to the coop. Go to the coop. And that means that you let the chickens lie, and the coop is just kind of like your inner, like your center. You come to your center. So that looks as simple as breathing yourself back to a place of calm. Knowing that when you are there, if there are things for you to tackle, you can. And sometimes it's helpful in letting it be okay to go to your coop that you just write all your chickens out. Okay, these are the things I think I need to figure out. Put it aside, and then come back to the work of taking control of your nervous system. So this is, like I said, a T to B journey. And one of the features of trauma is that you're going to think about shit you shouldn't think about. And like, shouldn't, but let's say like isn't productive to think about, because maybe you were in a place where you couldn't act naturally, and so you're trying to figure stuff out. And so you have this idea that you must figure things out, but that is a learned way to interact with the world. And yes, there is nuance to it. Yes, there is purpose to interacting with things and trying to like solve. But at the same time, when it feels overwhelming or it feels like it's not helpful, it's probably downstream from one of those experiences where it's like you were powerless, or someone was lying to you, or you weren't valued. And maybe it was a real thing, maybe that really happened, or maybe that was just your perception of it. It doesn't matter. In any case, if you don't feel comfortable to relax, then it's possible that you don't trust yourself or you don't trust life. And again, that comes from learning, from different experiences where you learned where you couldn't. Great. The ad there is, wait, is that you, Matt? I'm not capable. Okay, I'm not capable. Yes, that's a really great point. So I think part of what is learned is that there's nothing you can do to correct this. Oh my God, I miss you so much. I think about you all the time, and I think I've been looking for the wrong account. Okay, that makes so much sense. All right, I'm gonna text you or you text me. Okay, so I'm not capable. That's something that I definitely lived from and out. I lived out of the idea that I couldn't. And so actually what's really interesting, recently I learned that I felt afraid of my feelings, and I knew that on different levels. So if you're on the T to B journey, it's a little spirally, it's a little oniony. You like get to a layer and then you're like, oh, okay, I get it. And then you go deeper. And so it's something that I've been looking at before, but I recognized how afraid I was of not being in control of myself if I was in my feelings. So it's like, well, I can't go in my feelings because I might lose control. I'm not capable of dealing. Well, again, like those are learned things. And what's so trippy is you don't know necessarily at first, if you're on the T to B journey, what's learned and what's a real signal from the outside. Are you fearful and anxious because there's something for you to be worried about? Or is this old? You just freaking out? And again, it seems like the best way to notice that is to go to your coop, like let the chickens exhaust themselves, come to your center and breathe. Find a place where you feel like your belly and your lungs and your heart and your feet, and you breathe. Your whole job at first is just to get your nervous system under control. It's helpful sometimes to find where the tension is, the upsetness is in your body, and be there. For example, let's see, right now I feel it back here. I don't know if that's one of yours. And I feel it right here on the right side of my chest, and I feel it in my face. So wherever you feel sort of like, go there. Leave your thoughts, put all your thoughts on the side, let your chickens run, neck and shoulders huge, and go to the feeling, the tension. And I want you to kind of like probe into it. That means like lean into it, almost like you're trying to touch it. And then you're trying to bring space to it and love. And that sounds silly, but try it. If you feel so inspired. I'm not out here trying to tell anybody what to do. And you know what's really interesting about anxiety too? Sometimes it's not even yours. So like, I'm particularly energetically sensitive. That's how I read energy. That's how I work with clients. That might be you as well. Maybe you're not doing it as like formally as me, but maybe you check vibes, vibes. The world is crazy right now. yo, there's so much moving. And so what you might be feeling anxiety wise could just be everybody else losing their shit, because like they are, and like that's okay. And one way to know like what's yours and what's not yours is, is this even mine? Great, thanks for adding that. Like asking, how do you know? For me, what helped me learn was I took some time by myself. I spent some time by myself and came to see like what is natural for me. How do I really feel? And then anything that deviates from that, I'm able to use as information. For example, if I'm interacting with somebody and I'm saying a lot of something and I'm feeling some type of way I don't usually feel, then I'm like, okay, that's yours. I always feel it in my chest and back and then think I'm dying. Then I spiral. Okay. I appreciate you sharing that, and I'm sorry that you feel it. One way to kind of like interrupt the spiral is to sort of say like, and I know that this seems counterproductive, but it's like, okay, what if, like, I'm not afraid. I am. Like, play around with not resisting the idea that you're dying, or play around with not resisting the discomfort. Saying yes to your discomfort is kind of like, it doesn't really make sense at first, and it's like, I didn't really know what that meant. But basically it means, for example, one of the things that I've been unpacking over the years is this idea of being like abandoned or lonely. Always trying to solve how for that not to happen. And it happens like the solving can be direct, but it can also be indirect. It's a lot of like figuring, and that is kind of what contributes to overthinking, is these background fears. And that one that I'm talking to might show up. I recently noticed it shows up as like, well, I don't want to anchor, I don't want anything too sturdy professionally, because if somebody comes along and I'm not able to go be at their beck and call, maybe they'll leave me. Isn't that crazy? So for yours, so what I did was basically, I was like, okay, well, maybe this is my like cross to bear, and that, for me, it's also around having or feeling like my heart was broken, but that's healed because I was like, okay, well, maybe this is me forever. So if you accept like, maybe I'll feel this way forever, maybe I'll always feel anxious, maybe I'll always be afraid of these things, then your body kind of relaxes. And from there, you do have the opportunity to make new choices. And the choices that I'm looking at are kind of like thought choices. So you come to kind of like a thought and it's like, okay, I can start to obsess over this detail, or I can take a breath. So when you notice that the path splits and you can go toward the thinking that probably isn't helpful, on some level isn't helpful or might not be helpful right now, try the other one. Take the other path, take the breath. And what's like interesting about the path that you haven't taken and the path that isn't familiar is that this one is scary because you don't know where it goes. Maybe it goes nowhere, and so in some ways this is attractive because at least it keeps you where you're familiar. But if you let it be just like an inch by inch game, like imagine kind of like a pool of water and it has a really slow decline where you don't have to jump the whole way the fuck into the unknown. You can just touch the next bit, just a little, 5% more. I'll just see. I'll just try this breath again and see where it takes me. I'll just see. And what happens when you start to do that is your awareness and your perception expands, and what was scary or seemed like a dead end then shifts. Oh, this isn't contingent on here, or here's an opportunity, or I actually will be okay if that happens. Unconditional love of life is another great tool, and unconditional love of life is basically like, fuck. However it is, I'm going to be okay. No matter what it is, I'm going to be okay. And when you recognize that that's true, that you really can at any time have the best time or the worst time, depending on how you think. And again, there's nuance to that. I'm not trying to discount physical pain or grief or any of that. Those are all real experiences. But in general, if you come to accept or play around with, even in those circumstances, if you're okay with those circumstances, okay with grief, okay with fear, okay with this, then it's like, this is life, man. There ain't nowhere else to go. If you want a cute song to ground and feel okay, look up Here Comes a Thought, Steven Universe. Thank you, darling. That's a great idea. So just for anybody that wants to look that up, Here Comes a Thought, Steven Universe. Okay, so all right, so people in the audience, I don't want to use a name just in case you don't want me to, but do you, like, for the anxiousness that you were feeling, like, how are you feeling now? What questions do you have? So if you guys are just joining, what we're looking at today is anxiousness, and this is for people on the T to B journey. So that means that, okay, thank you. That means that you don't need to, that means that, where am I at? On the T to B journey basically I forget where I was going. I can attest learning to float, not thrash. Your advice works. Thank you, darling. Thank you, darling. And honestly, like, I know what it's like for your insides to be fucking rocked. Like, I know what it's like to lose your shit and feel like, you know, like, it's almost like you're gone and then you come back and it's like, wait, what? And then what happens over time is you start to become aware of, as a scientist, it's helped. As you start to, like, witness that, and you're like, oh man, I'm losing my shit. So rather than, like, you being lost in losing your shit, you're there. A part of you is witnessing that you're losing your shit. And then that part might lose its shit, and you're in the same place that you started, where it's like, we're crazy in here. But if you can get a part of you to say okay to one of the parts that's losing their shit, then you start to be like, okay, I'm okay. It's almost like you parent yourself. You have the child that's thrashing, and maybe they're thrashing in response to something that's real and hurts. And then you have the part of you that's like, that's okay. You can thrash. I want you to thrash. It's okay. How you feel is okay. How you feel is okay. How you feel is okay. And, like, I'm gonna push that out and maybe you can play it on loop. How you feel is okay. When you start to say yes to how you feel, then again, like, there's not so much fear in the system because you're not trying to control something you can't control. And in that, you kind of relax. You relax, and then remember, then you start to see the path. It's like, okay, well, do I want to think this thought that doesn't really make sense? Do I really want to go knock on that door? Or do I want to take a breath and just see where the breath goes? Just one at a time, just one at a time. And again, a helpful tool can be like, write out the stuff that you need to solve, you know, like, and put it somewhere and say, like, okay, I will visit this. I will visit this when I can visit this. Breathing wins. Okay. Anything else? Does anybody have any, like, did we answer your questions? The other thing is, like, there can be guilt and shame around this whole process. But honey, you ain't alone. You ain't alone. Like, love you. I'm blessed to be in a lot of heads, and there are people from the outside often that look like you. Or you don't think they look like they're losing their shit on the inside. And they're not losing their shit on the inside all the time, but it happens. And it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. And granted, like, that's my specialty, so I'm seeing a subset of the population. But if you look at what's popular in memes and TV and, like, the conversation, like, you're not alone. You're not alone. And letting it be okay that you feel that way, again, sometimes that just opens it and allows for you to work with it more intentionally, more consciously. Guilt and shame can look like, I should be able to handle this. I need to be less like a child. Shame. Yeah, I should be able to handle this. That's a big one. And I think that happens for men particularly. And that's something I've been kind of looking at a little bit differently recently, is like how men and women do have or sit under different cultural expectations. And men in particular have this, seems to be like, oh, they should know all these things. They think they should know all these things, be all these things. And women feel that. But, you know, it does seem like we have other outlets. We have some other outlets. But for dudes, it's like, it's a lot of pressure. It seems like a lot of pressure, especially in our world right now. What's happening? So again, just kind of go to your chicken coop. Let the chickens run wild. Let them exhaust themselves. Fuck, if they want to run into another yard, they can. But allowing yourself to breathe into your own center and to go from there. Men have been knocked down since a wee lad. Boys don't cry. Shame. Yeah, y'all can have feelings. Y'all can have feelings. And girls don't have to have, girls can be whatever they want. We can all be whatever we are, and that can move. Okay, again, I'm on TikTok now, daily energy readings. If you want to join, you can go to the link in my bio. It's at Shaylee Edwards. They've been super fun to do. They're just real short. Comment, share, repost, do all the cool things. And I'm going to put this one out on YouTube. And same thing there, like help a girl grow. Because recently I've decided it's okay for me to be as big and bright and successful as I want. So for me, that means that I can help more people and the world can be nicer and I can have a good time, and that's all okay. Thank you. So glad you guys came out. I really appreciate you. Nice to see you. Love you. Bye.